Welcome back. Today, we're looking at a submission that is just a really passionate articulation of the challenges introverts face in a world that feels like a stage, one that rewards performance and misunderstands internal focus.
And that conviction is so palpable. You can feel the personal experience behind it. The core strength here is just that authenticity, the originality of the voice. It's an incredibly powerful foundation.
I agree completely. The material hits hard, and that intensity is something we want to preserve, but we need to channel it. So let's dive right in with the tone.
Absolutely.
The strongly binary and occasionally dismissive characterizations of external-focused people risk limiting the material's philosophical reach and unnecessarily polarizing the audience.
So when contrasting the internal world with the external one, the language sometimes goes beyond critiquing a system and starts making these absolute judgments about other people.
Right, like saying extroverts have a very weak internal world?
Exactly. Or that a colleague doesn't even deserve a single word from me. And that frustration is completely understandable, I get it. But it creates a kind of logical fragility.
It really does. The moment it becomes about stereotypes of the other group, it sort of loses the high ground. It stops being a critique of systemic bias, which is the piece's real strength.
And it becomes a personal fight.
A personal fight, exactly, which undermines the whole philosophical depth the writer is clearly aiming.
So the solution here, and I think this is critical, is to shift the tone from this us versus them battle.
Introverts versus extroverts.
Right. Shift it to a much more focused critique of the systemic bias itself, the thing that favors that external performance. That way you validate the struggle without judging the internal lives of others.
Yeah, and by focusing on the system, you actually draw in allies. Think about all the outgoing people who are still exhausted by mandatory socializing at work.
Oh, for sure. Performative enthusiasm.
If you alienate them by saying their internal world is weak, you lose readers who could have been champions for the exact change you're advocating for.
So a concrete way to do this, instead of saying external focused people lack an internal world, you can just acknowledge that they get their primary energy from social interaction. It's a difference in sourcing energy, not a measure of moral depth.
Exactly. And that reframing is key when you talk about the fear of silence. Frame it as a result of a specific corporate culture that's learned to equate visibility and constant chatter with productivity.
So you're critiquing the metric itself.
You're critiquing the metric, not implying that most people have some kind of personal failure or fear of being alone.
Yeah, and when you soften the attack on the people who thrive in that environment, the attack on the system that created it just becomes so much more powerful.
It moves the argument from just an emotional reaction to a real strategic diagnosis.
And that rigor is what elevates the whole piece. Which actually brings us to the next point about bolstering that intellectual architecture.
Right. Building the case.
To elevate the argument from a powerful personal testimony to a robust systemic critique, the material needs to integrate specific analysis of why the external world has become the dominant metric, moving beyond personal observation. Right now, the justification for the bias is based on these really powerful metaphors. People are afraid of solitude. This world is a stage. They're great, but they kind of exist in a vacuum.
They need more connective tissue.
Exactly. That analogy about the philosopher from 5,000 years ago who'd be stocking shelves today is fantastic. But we need the modern reason. What's the economic mechanism that devalues quiet reflection now?
We need to see the engine of the bias, not just the wreckage it leaves.
I'd really encourage the listener to bring in some specific, high-level concepts. Sociological, economic,
even technological. Yeah, to explain why there's this pressure to perform the script, you have to show how things like wisdom and self-awareness are actively devalued in our metrics-driven society.
So a concrete way in would be to explicitly link that stage metaphor to how the modern corporate world has evolved. The rise of the service and knowledge economy.
Where value isn't a physical product anymore.
Right. Value is now perceived collaboration. It's engagement in meetings. It's that dreaded cultural fit. That shift explains why the bias moved from valuing internal quality to rewarding external display.
And the tech angle you mentioned is huge. You could explore how our tools, social media, Slack, whatever, are designed to reward constant, visible engagement. They literally quantify performative enthusiasm.
That's a great point. The philosopher stocking shelves isn't just invisible. He's generating no measurable data within that ecosystem.
Exactly. So instead of just saying society ignores intelligence, you can explore explore how the system rewards the visible application of it, the polished presentation, the loud voice in the meeting.
The person who takes credit for the quiet thinker's idea?
Yes, by focusing on that mechanism of reward, you show exactly where the system is broken.
Take the job interview example. Instead of just saying it's absurd theater, you could juxtapose the focus on performative enthusiasm, the smiling, the energy, with the actual deep technical requirements of the job.
And that contrast shows exactly how the bias gets into the system right at the front door. It values the container over the content.
It just transforms the complaint into a diagnosis supported by modern context.
Which is so much stronger.
A profound diagnosis. Yeah, and that diagnosis naturally leads to the third part, which is, okay, what's the prescription? How do you actually navigate this world?
Right. The material effectively outlines the pain of resisting the external demands, but stops short of providing a strategic roadmap for highly internal individuals to successfully navigate the professional world without resorting to complete withdrawal. The conclusion right now, it leans really heavily on avoidance. The desire for a job with 0 words, not seeking promotions, saying, we don't want to be no manager.
And you understand where that comes from, right? The miserable bank teller job example makes that clear. Totally. But it frames success only as total isolation. And for a lot of people who need that paper, who want to use their intelligence at work, that's just not a viable long-term strategy.
The listener has this incredible internal richness. They've made that case so well. The weakness is framing those assets as only useful when they're locked away.
So the suggestion has to be
A pivot from passive resistance to assertive, strategic engagement. We need to show how that internal world can be actively leveraged to dictate the terms of communication. It's about quality over quantity.
the goal isn't just to talk less, it's to make every word count. So instead of rejecting all manager roles, for example, maybe suggest focusing on specific positions that require deep analysis and structured influence.
Roles where their inner world creates the strategy for others.
Exactly. Specialist tracks, consulting, deep analysis, where the output is thought leadership, not just chatter.
That shifts the whole paradigm. It moves the goal from avoid talking to only talk when this substance is high value. And you know the material already has a perfect model for that.
You mean the coworkers who worked an entire shift without talking?
Exactly. Use that example. Model how introverts can set clear professional boundaries that favor focused, substantive collaboration over just, obligatory small talk. They use their focus to set the terms of engagement.
Which puts the quiet individual back in control. The idea is because your internal world is so rich, you have to treat your external energy like a strategic investment.
Right.
Only articulate points of substance. You turn the act of speaking into a high-value transaction that matches the depth of your thought, which then justifies the silence.
And if the quiet person only speaks when they have a highly analyzed, high-value insight, their perceived value goes up dramatically. The scarcity of their communication becomes a sign of seriousness and depth.
It reverses the bias. It frames silence as professional power, not social shame.
Exactly, which is an incredibly empowering message.
It is. It validates the identity while providing a real functional path forward. This has been a great critique. The core argument is so strong, and these adjustments will just make it that much more sophisticated.
I wholeheartedly agree. So to recap the 3 main action items. First, refine that adversarial tone. Critique the systemic bias, not the people.
Second, deepen the critique with real contextual analysis. Link the pressure to perform to modern economic and corporate structures. Show the why.
And finally, develop that strategic, assertive path forward. Move beyond withdrawal and show how the internal world can be leveraged to dictate the terms of high-value engagement.
That's a powerful set of refinements. The conviction in this piece is just undeniable. Now it's about solidifying the strategy.
We really encourage you to implement these suggestions. Flesh out that systemic analysis, chart that strategic path, and please send it back to us. We'd love to see where this goes.
Until next time, keep challenging yourself to improve.